Hi, Kat. Thanks for joining us for this little climate salad catch up. Now, firstly, what made you decide to create a climate tech company?
Oh, well, cast your mind back to the start of 2020, and we'd just come out of, the devastating bushfires here in Australia, which I now call home, even though you can hear that it's not where I'm originally from. And it really put climate change on the agenda here in Australia. I mean, it kind of, some people have paid lip service to it before, I believe, but I think it really accelerated the pace at which consumers and businesses and indeed government started thinking, wow, there's a real problem here that we need to start to address. In the meantime, I was working, prior to that in banking, specifically for Macquarie, who are one of the largest renewable energy infrastructure asset managers and really progressive in this space. So I was kind of seeing the opportunity from the perspective of one of the largest infrastructure fund managers, and then watching the kind of community catch up and go, wow, this is a real problem. We need to be, moving out of fossil fuels. But as I kind of explored the opportunity in the space, I realized there was really a lack of solutions available to both individuals and small to medium enterprises who might want to take action on climate, but kind of weren't equipped to do so, like didn't know where to start. They didn't know who they could turn to for help. They maybe didn't have the budget and resources to get external help. So that's where the idea, I guess, of Trace came from. Our mission being to empower individuals and businesses to become carbon neutral and really promote the journey to net zero. Oh, look, I can't say that I've never been a male, and I've never not owned a climate tech startup. So it's hard for me to kind of say, if I were, a male, this would be easier or anything like that. I actually think that I've met many women in climate tech. I don't know if it's because, ESG as a space is an area that I guess pulls on the purpose-led and empathetic heartstrings potentially of women. I think a lot of purpose-led businesses in the past have been, or purpose-led roles within organizations are often female positions, like head of ESG is often a female. Same with like D&I. All these kind of really important environmental and societal problems were often roles of women. I think only now are people starting to realize that climate and sustainability are not just imperatives for like a healthier planet, but for the bottom line, and that it's an economic decision that we all as businesses and individuals need to be conscious of. That's why climate tech excites me. It's for purpose, but it's also for profit. I don't know if you saw Larry Fink's comment, the CEO of BlackRock, his comment saying the next 1,000 unicorns are going to be climate tech companies. That excites me enormously, because I'm not doing this because I feel like there is obviously an element of me wanting to contribute towards a better planet and a better future for the next generations. But I'm in this to also make a living myself, and that's what excites me about this space, is you can do both. They're not in conflict. So I don't think there's a gender role to play here, although I think what's exciting is that a lot of women who may have been seen to be doing these kind of fluffy jobs in the past are now being taken really, really seriously. Yes. So no, Joe and I launched Trace together, and interestingly, we began as a consumer-led business. So our goal was to try and help individuals like yourself, Charlotte, become carbon neutral by offsetting your personal carbon footprint. Now, that's still one of our product lines, but in trying to grow that business, we recognized there was actually a wider opportunity and a broader demand from small to medium enterprise who were really underserved in their ability to take climate action, engage their staff and customers in the process. So we, put to work our IP and what we'd learned from having a B2C business to grow the B2B side of the business. So we launched that product at the end of last year, December or so. We've now got nearly 100 customers. So we've grown about 70% month on month since we launched. And look, it's been, obviously it's been a lot of hard work, but it's also because we're riding a wave, and we're lucky to be kind of first to market. And we think that having spent 12 months sort of really learning in depth what the problem is and what humans and individuals care about, we're therefore able to deliver a software platform that kind of speaks to what individuals care about, even if they're acting on behalf of their business. So, we're not just a boring accounting platform for carbon accounting. We are a platform that enables and inspires change, makes it simple, makes it accessible, makes it educational, so that anyone within a business can become, I guess, a sustainability expert, because that, to us, is the key to success, is really empowering anyone to make change happen. So yeah, we've been very, very lucky, but also worked very hard to get this growth. And fortunately, we've been able to secure some additional funding in the last few months, which means that we can now grow the team even further and ultimately help more businesses become carbon neutral here and overseas.
You started off with just you and Joe. How much has your team expanded today, and what's next?
Yes, Joe and I were kind of the two and only employees of Trace until June this year. In the last 3 months, we've hired four people, so 2 technologists, so 2 software engineers, 1 content marketing manager, and a business development director. And those are kind of, we broadly break the business into sort of product and tech and marketing and sales, and we're growing both sides of those businesses a lot. We believe in distribution and product as equally as important in growing a business like ours. So by the end of next year, we plan to be at 15 FTE, so over doubling the size of where we are today.
That's incredible. You must be absolutely very proud. Now, I don't think there's been a time when there has been so much focus on climate tech, climate action, climate solutions, with COP26 and ImpactX last week. What's your take on it?
The first thing, and I'll be honest, I am overwhelmed with content. So I am probably I'm actually not up to scratch with what's happening day to day. I don't know if anyone else feels the same, and I'm embarrassed to admit that, the CEO of a climate tech company is not across everything going on at COP, but there's just so much noise, I can't stay on top of it. So I'm kind of waiting for the end. Some wonderful journalists out there to go, right, here are the top 10 things that happened. But what obviously the benefit is just bringing together all these companies to focus on the future, which excites me enormously. And I think it's brought real awareness to the population at large, globally, that this is a problem that everyone is taking seriously. We've seen countries make net zero commitments, which is really promising. Are they fast enough? Probably not. Australia being one of them, it's pretty disappointing, but at least they're moving in the right direction. I think the one area that I have been paying attention to us insofar as it's most relevant to Trace is the discussion around Article 6, which is basically the part of the IPCC paper that talks to the use of offsets and how they can be used in order to help businesses, companies, countries get to net zero. It's very contentious. The most extreme people would argue, offsets are terrible because they just alleviate guilt and they mean we're not actually moving towards reduction. Totally true if they're used in that way. Other people would say, it's the only way to get to net zero, which is also true because there's always going to be some level of carbon emissions in our human activity. So I think the key to them being used in a valid way and in a constructive way for the future of our planet is getting Article 6 right, and that basically means defining what offsets are valid, how they can be used against which kind of activities, and then what claims countries and companies can make. And as a business that's helping companies become carbon neutral, that's going to be very relevant to us.
Sorry, I'm putting myself on mute when you're talking because I've got lots of birds in the background.
Lovely.
And just as a side note, before I ask you about why it's important to be part of a climate tech community, you mentioned just then carbon neutral. Are you still going down the language of carbon positive or climate positive to carbon neutral?
Oh, yes. We have just put out a blog on this exact topic. So please do share it after this call because it is an area of much confusion. And, even frankly, when we were writing the blog, there was some debate among the team about the difference in terminology. So at a really broad level, you've got kind of net zero, which is the long-term commitments that businesses and countries are making. And it's sort of long-term strategy, which entails and requires a huge amount of reduction. So generally to be net zero, you need to have reduced your emissions by about 95%, leaving only 5% to be offset. That's a long way away. So in the interim, companies and countries are committing to be carbon neutral, which means they are actively using carbon credits or carbon offsets to offset those current emissions as they stand. Now, we use the term climate positive because for a number of different reasons. One, I just prefer it. It sounds more positive. It doesn't sound boring. It takes into account climate, not just carbon. And there's more to climate change mitigation than just carbon, although that is a great way to sort of measure the outcomes. It's positive by, has the word positive in it. But also we don't want to get, at Trace, we don't want to get confused with certification programs that already exist, like the government here in Australia. There's a government program called Climate Active, which enables businesses to become certified carbon neutral. Now, we use almost exactly the same methodology as them, but just for sake of clarification and to ensure there's no risk of sort of people making false claims, we have decided to coin the term climate positive. It basically means we as a business are moving towards a positive outcome for climate. Oh, it's been already amazing. Just in the kind of people you meet, they're all passionate about, the same outcomes, but solving it in a different way. So the kind of bump factor of meeting people all solving the same problem in different ways, it just means that there's so many more ideas at play. There's more chance of success, I think, when we're all playing together instead of against each other. I've met, experts that have been able to then connect me to people that might help from a business growth or sort of figuring out a challenging problem perspective. There's been an enormous amount of sharing. Investors, because there's a lot of passionate angel investors out there that want to deploy capital into the climate space. And this community has really, helped me access that. But fundamentally, it's just really great to be part of a community that, all share the same values and that are all really passionate about this. So I absolutely love it. I think there's so much more to come from Climate Salad, and I hope to be able to help in its growth.